All right, what's going on, guys? Indy here with Ultimate Tour Reviews. So we're working on the little project mini bike today again, the $300 Facebook find. So in the first video, I had a couple of things that we noticed that, hey, we're going to do preemptively. Of course, like a new pull starter. These are always great to just do, whether or not it looks in good condition or not. I like to do these for 10 bucks, because it's kind of, that's the starter. It breaks, has an issue with it, you can't start it. You might as well kind of do these preemptively. They're cheap. These do go bad quite often anyways, so you might as well just put a new one in regardless. The brake handles, these things, I pretty much every mini bike I've ever bought has a broken one whenever I buy these things, so this of course is always going to do one of these. We're doing new pegs, of course, because why not? I like the kind of the black look on these things too, like kind of that cool, that blacked out look. And of course, one of them is busted, so we're gonna have to try to bend back that bracket to get that fixed. And of course, just a couple of regular maintenance items. Don't necessarily need to do these, but I'm gonna do them anyways because they're super cheap anyways. A new air filter and of course a new spark plug. Kind of funny, the starter actually came with a spark plug as well too. So not really sure which one's higher quality, but I got an extra spark plug. That's kind of nice to have on hand. And again, when it comes to mini bikes and stuff, yeah, you can go with quality parts. That's no big deal going with that. But at the same time, you can always use a cheaper spark plug. Yeah, it's going to probably fail, but you're not putting 40,000 miles on a mini bike. So, this stuff will work out pretty well for, of course, occasional use on this, these toys. It's not that big of a deal. Of course, you can always buy a better spark plug. It's not a big deal. I've bought a couple of better ones. They're $6, $7, $8 at the auto parts store. Not a big deal. So let's get the couple of necessities on there, get the pegs on, and get the new brake handle on. That way I can actually drive this thing like normal and see if there's anything else going on with it, which I don't think there is. My only guess, anything else that could be wrong with this bike once I get up and running, fully being able to cruise this thing, is maybe going to be the rear brakes be squealing a little bit. That's about it from what I've seen so far, and that'd be my only guess. So let's get down to it. I'm pretty sure everything on these mini bikes is either an 8 or a 10 millimeter, just from working on these things for so long. It's funny seeing how many things are 8 millimeter on these mini bikes. All right, so to detach this, super easy. I just pull the two 8 millimeter bolts. We are then going to basically just pull this out. This pops up, and that is it. You can see where this thing broke here. They use just really cheap metal from the factory, and these things bust off so easily. Replacing these with an aftermarket one is always a good idea because they are really cheap, and it's weird to say it, but the aftermarket ones are actually surprisingly good quality. And I've discovered that with a few things. I own an RV now too, and even aftermarket RV parts are surprisingly better quality than the factory. All right, so that's the brake cable that's attached, and here's all the parts I'm going to be throwing away. All right, not bad at all. I like to have that a little bit higher than factory, just because I like to be able to reach up towards it. Overall, this took about 5 minutes or so. Not bad at all. And of course, you can adjust your brake feel right here as well too. And that's about it. Might adjust this a little bit tighter. There we go. I like the feel of that now. All right, let's move on to the pegs now. These are actually pretty simple, but funny enough, they have quite a lot of pieces going on with these things. So not too bad really to swap out, of course. I just like to memorize how they go in. So we have a pin that goes through here. I'm going to cut that, pull that cotter pin out here. There we go. And then there is a washer on the end. There should be a piece in here with a ball bearing, which is very well worn. Yeah, this thing is super well worn. You can see where that ball bearing dug into that plate there quite a bit. That's pretty wild. I never like these things popping in. I know they pop in so they don't bust off, but if I could just have these things like welded solid, I would do that. What I always like to do is you can grab a really large slip groove pliers and just bend these back pretty easily. They're not that thick of steel. I mean, they kind of are, but they usually bend back relatively quick, relatively easily. So of course, these are left and right oriented, so make sure you grab the right one there. And I'm just going to forego entirely putting all the rest of the crap on there. I always skip that. I mean, you can put the other little piece back on there, but I might just put a couple bead welds on here and just weld this thing solid anyways, because I don't ever kick these back up. So kind of lazy, but it's a mini bike. So we're going to put the cotter pin back in here and call it a day on these pegs, because I think they're wildly overcomplicated for what they are. You don't even need pliers, these cotter pins. These are super light cotter pins. They should just pop back up like that. There we go. All right, let's do the other side now. This is the one that had the most amount of issues and has clearly been hit. I have to find a way to get this thing off because the bottom of this thing is just bent. So I might just have to pop out a hammer or something here to get this thing off. Yeah, this thing has got some damage to it. Now I'm going to use a little grinder here and get this thing cut off. Might need a little persuasion. There we go. That thing was like fused in there. I don't know why, but all right, let's grab some slip groove pliers, get this thing back to as best as normal as we can. There we go. All right, so let's take this thing out for a quick test drive. Now that it's fully operational, the pegs are on, so you can actually have your feet somewhere. And of course, we have a new brake handle, so that's going to be awesome. We can test this thing out now, see how well it runs, and see if there's any issues. My only guess, maybe the brakes. That's about it. All right, so let's move on to changing out the pull starter here. Something a little odd about this motorcycle here is this has been changed up before, I can tell. For one, this is obviously not original to this motor. Secondly, we're missing 3 bolts on here. So I don't know what happened here exactly, but this is sort of new. I'm gonna pull this off, take a look at the cable. I don't know, this feels like a cheap one to me. So I'm gonna replace this anyways because they're cheap enough. And we'll see how this thing looks here. Again, 8mm bolts, so pretty easy to get off. Not sure why you would only put in 3 bolts out of the 6 on this, and just being lazy is my only guess there. And you can always pull the rope out, check the condition. You see any like frays or anything, or cuts? This one just looks dirty, really, is all I really see here. So this is in decent condition. I'll save this one as like a backup, because why not? It looks in, I'd say, okay to good condition, really. But yeah, I'm going to replace anyways, because they're cheap. And again, they just slide right on. You can actually test this before, like that, and you should be good to go. Oh, I see here. We only have 3 mounting holes actually in here. That's interesting. I'm not sure why that is. Usually there's always 6, but okay. Might just be a newer motor design or something like that that's causing that, so not a big deal. Now there are electric start options for these available, but they're a little pricey, and again, it's another couple failure points, and you gotta have a more advanced electrical system and everything, so my 2 cents is all these mini bikes, simpler the better. All right, next up, let's get this air filter changed out here. This is actually not too hard to do. You don't even need any tools to do this. And this one looks pretty good from what I can tell. And I'll probably keep this air filter as a backup. This is definitely the original one here. And I pulled this off in the first video. Looked pretty good, but again, I ordered a spark plug. It came with an air filter, so might as well change them out there. Yeah, and this thing, actually, I'm not even gonna change this one out. Look at that. Inside of that thing is super clean. It's like this thing wasn't even ran at all. That's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing like any dirt inside that filter. I'll just leave this one on. Why not? I don't see really much of a point to change it when it looks brand new. And I think this is the original one. I mean, there's a good amount of dust on here yet, so I would think this is original. I mean, they didn't change the oil. I'm gonna change the oil filter, right? That'd be my 2 cents on that. Okay, next up, let's get that spark plug changed out. Right here at the back of the engine, that spark plug boot is just going to pop right off, pulls right off, no big deal. So that gives you access to the spark plug, which is right there. These are going to be using a 13/16 spark plug socket, and then I like to use a swivel wrench to get these out, or swivel ratchet to get these out, because they are a little tricky in there. So that's this Ulsa Tools one we're going to be using here, and get that thing popped right out of there. Really curious to see how this one is going to look. I mean, everything else on this bike looks pretty good. Like, you know, it's taken a couple of hard hits, you know, and stuff, but like cosmetically, you know, like the pegs are damaged. But I mean, everything internal seems pretty good, other than the oil. The only thing that was like a little concerning. This one's a little tight in there. Usually you can break these things loose and they will pop right out. Like take them up by hand, but not this one. going to take this air box off to get a better hand in there. There we go. All right, this plug looks rather dirty. Looks like it's got a decent amount of wear on it. And let's compare this to the new plug here. So yeah, hopefully this thing isn't running too rich or anything. That's why we got all that carbon buildup in that old plug. But I mean, even the old plug though, doesn't look too bad. So look at the new one in there. I'm just checking gap here. They look pretty good. This one should be gapped pretty nicely. So let's get rid of this old plug, pop the new one in. And just snug it down, not too tight. I'll pop the spark plug boot back on. There we go. Put the airbox back on. Should be good to go then. All right, guys, and that is that. We did a air filter check. We didn't replace that because we didn't need it. Put on a new pull starter. We did a new spark plug. We checked out the fuel, added a little bit of seafoam there, added some fresh gas as well too. We changed out the brake cable. We are going to now check out the throttle cable. Actually, it's going to be the next phase here. Let's do that now. All right, so we got 2 screws on here to get this off. Ooh, almost stripped that one, I think. They're tight. I'm going to grab the cutoff tool. We'll cut that little screw head off there. Should be pretty easy. Alright, so I still wasn't able to get all the way in there, but I was able to cut just a like a flathead in there, so I should be able to get this off with a flathead. Oop, kind of busted it a little bit there. There we go. Alright, so at this point we're just going to replace the entire throttle cable, and a full assembly too. I was hoping I could maybe just replace this here, but this is pretty well toast altogether here. It's plenty of wear and tear here. So we're going to replace the whole thing, not a big deal. We just need to cut all these zip ties. You can always put in fresh zip ties if you want to. And pretty easy to replace these. Just a little bit longer now that you got to cut all the zip ties, but we'll make it do. All right, we got 2 screws in here, 1 screw right there, 1 screw back there that actually holds it in. So we'll get those unscrewed here with a small screwdriver, and we can put the new cable in. We're going to be reusing that old spring here. My new cable is slightly longer, which is a good thing. But one small problem here, we got this little piece on the end here we need to cut off so we can feed that through there and then through the lock screw. Diagonal snips takes that right off, no problem. That's what we want right there. I'm gonna double check these double check these screws here. Make sure they are tightened up nicely. Also, too, guys, quick tip: it's really hard to see in here, but here, let me use the screwdriver here. You have that screw right there that you can actually back out right there. See, if I were to pull the throttle here, see how that screw stops that from going farther? You can actually loosen that up to give yourself more speed. It's kind of like they call it a throttle screw. I like to call it like a light governor kind of a thing. The governor is actually inside the motor. It can be removed. I don't really ever do those. But you can actually back that out or actually feed it in more to kind of limit the speed of these things too. Which of course you got younger kids or anything like that. You want to keep them safe. You can do that if you want as well. So super easy to do. I'm gonna leave it as is for now and play around with it a little bit later. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to replace the kill switch too. This is pretty easy to do. Take the old one off. Other one goes down here and they just set in pretty nicely. I'll leave that kind of loose for right now. Once I get the throttle cable hooked back up, then we'll be able to put that back in. All right, to wire this back in, we have a little connector here for your black wire. And there's a nice little cover for this. This will just snap back in. For our ground wire, we are going to just splice this cable. A couple ways you could do this. All are pretty simple to do. There we go. And then we'll just splice this in with another connector. All right, so we're going to get this wire stripped here. Boom, there we go. I'm going to get this one stripped. Boom, there we go. Now I've got a really cool tool to connect these, actually nice and waterproof. Let me show you this. So I got this really cool stuff from Solder Seal Hastronica. This stuff is pretty cool. They're not sponsored with the video or anything, but they sent me this a while ago, and this stuff is awesome for connecting two wires together when you really don't want them to come apart, and you also want to be able to solder them. So I'm going to grab one of the smaller ones out of here. Probably the red should do just fine. And then, of course, you'll need a heat gun, and let me show you how this works. Pretty easy. So you get that started on one side, and we're going to come over to this side, feed that in there, and that little silver part in the center there is going to be our solder. We're going to get melted on in there. There we go. So I would start with the edges first, and that allows you to get them kind of clamped on in. This is pretty quick. And there we go. That is all sealed up, watertight. All right, not too bad. Just had to make a quick adjustment down there on the throttle spring, just kind of loosen up a little bit. No big deal. But now I actually got a nice smooth throttle now. All right, all we got left to do now is throw on a couple of zip ties on these cables, and we are all set. My preference is to not go crazy with it and just do like 2 to 3 zip ties, because not a lot of reason to just go crazy with these zip ties. And of course, make sure you can turn fully left and right. You have enough space there. And cut off the extra. All right, guys, that's all we need to do for today. That's quite a lot of work done, but really not that big of a deal. I think total time right now, I'm at about an hour. So not terrible. This is with filming and everything. Not too bad of a job. We're probably going to get the other new handle on there. That's kind of a bit of a job there, pulling that thing off. So we'll get that done eventually. But we got the new kill switch installed. We got the new throttle installed here. We got the air filter checked, the all-new spark plug installed. We got the new starter installed. We got a lot of stuff done today. And we got the new pegs installed. Tons of stuff here done. So that is awesome. Well, guys, that concludes part 2 of this video. Thanks, guys.